You are now listening to Killing the Void with Andrew Parks, a podcast series.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Killing the Void podcast. I'll be your host, Andrew Parks, as always. Today there is no guest speaker, but we will be going over the Covington Catholic students in the pro-life movement versus the Black Israelites and the Native Americans at this rally, or whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure. Is it a protest, a movement? I don't know what it is. I just know you need permits to do stuff like this, which the Catholic school had for the pro-life movement. The school came, dropped off some teachers and students at this rally, and they were there all day long. And we get into the issue that blew up all over social media. Basically, we were given this very edited clip on the news of these boys smirking and chanting like Native American chants at this Indian drummer guy. And they even had the Indian Nathan Phillips, the man you see in this picture. He basically came out on the news saying that he was a veteran and he was in the war and he didn't deserve that type of disrespect. And they were saying, build the wall. And they were, yelling and cursing at him and saying defamatory stuff. And so right away, the celebrities and the liberals and even the Republicans and all the news outlets, they all jumped on board with Nathan Phillips, outraged at these kids wearing the MAGA hats, the Make America Great Again hats. And then a couple days later, a whole 2-hour video pops up on the internet, and we see what really happens. Basically, in short, what really happens is these Black Israelites are known as a hate group, and they were shouting derogatory things at these white Catholic students for over an hour before Nathan Phillips arrives and is beating his drums. And Nathan thinks he's going to defuse the situation by drumming his way to the group of these young kids and beating his drum in front of the boy's face. A lot of people say, okay, so now we have the full video, and it shows that these boys weren't the ones that provoked the situation, but they're still at fault because they're sitting there smirking and not leaving. They're not bowing away from this Indian beating his drum in their face and turning their backs and walking away and leaving their protests for life or whatever. So the liberal media is still not fully apologizing to these young students who were, from the ages of 14 to 17. And now you got all these people speculating what really, really happened. And like we said, a few videos have popped up. And so I'm going to pause here and we're going to go over some of the headlights of what really happened. All right, so watch now.
This child molesting priest right there. Right. Let's make America great again. A bunch of child molesting.
Look at all these dusty crackers with that racist garbage on. Look at these dirty crackers.
A bunch of future school shooters.
That's right.
A bunch of incest babies. A bunch of babies made out of incest. The biggest terrorist on the face of this earth is the pale-faced man, woman, and child.
Phillips was with a group of Native Americans coming from an Indigenous Peoples March when he can be seen walking between the students and the protesters.
I intervened, and things just escalated from there.
Phillips says he was trying to diffuse the tense situation. Sandman says he was confused about Phillips's motives.
All right, now let's just very quickly look at some of the tweets that were posted after this incident. Alex Cran says, from elementary school through college, I went to school with sheltered upper middle class white boys who could devastate with a smirk, a facial gesture that weaponized their privilege. Infuriatingly, you can't fight that fucking smirk with a punch. Or Jack Morrissey says, hashtag MAGA kids go screaming, hats first into the wood chipper. He also posted a very obscene graphical picture that was blocked by the news. Bakari Saller says, he is deplorable, talking about the young boy. Some people can also be punched in the face. Yeah, so another punch in the face. This news contributor, Anna Navarro, says, nobody is born racist. Bigotry is learned from parents, teachers, society, and leaders. So yes, I sure as hell think Trump's racist comments and constant dog whistles have contributed to the making asswipes great again. It is why we condemn racism everywhere and every time we see it. Reza Aslan says, honest question, have you ever seen a more punchable face than this kid's? That is because the boy was smirking in front of the Indian. Republicans were weighing in on this in Twitter. Republican Bill Kristol says, the contrast between the calm dignity and quiet strength of Mr. Phillips and the behavior of hashtag MAGA brats who have absorbed the spirit of Trumpism, the spectacle is a lesson which all Americans can learn. Alright, so what we just seen there was the Black Israelites yelling very negative things at these young students, which you should never be yelling obscenities to kids. But as you could see in some of their statements, they were blaming white women, children, and men for all of Earth's issues, basically. So every issue that Earth has ever had is the white person's fault, which is racist in itself. As you could tell, I am a mixed race person if you're watching the video on YouTube. So I'm not trying to defend the whites. I'm just being honest with the situation, which for some reason a lot of the left-wing media has issues with being honest on certain topics. There was even a interview on Fox News. I'm independent, by the way, so even though I'm quoting Fox News, it's not that I always follow their narratives. I also watch CNN and all that. And like, you know, any media left or right, you kind of have to look at it, take it in, and then leave about 98% of what they say out, because a lot of it has hidden meanings. They're trying to point you in their views of how they see politics, which instead of just reporting the actual facts, news no longer do that. They try to bring back viewers to their channel, so they try to make their networks interesting, and they're catering to an audience. So whether it's left or right-wing media, they're going to try to target those left-wing people or those right-wing people. But getting back to these Black Israelites, they had the leader on Fox News, and with Waters, I forget his name. Like I said, I'm not a full Republican. Anyways, he said, you know, he showed the video I just showed and saying that why do you guys practice hate speech? Like, is this a subgroup of you guys, or what's going on? Why would you guys be doing that to children? And basically what this leader said was they're not a group. They are a people, a religion. And so he was getting very upset at Waters for calling them a group. They're not like a liberal or a conservative group. They claim they are an actual race, Black Israelites, with views. And he said a lot of these groups have popped up in America trying to remember their heritage. What they believe in is that the true biblical figures in the Bible were black, and that they are the true Israelites versus the current Israelites, which can maybe be true or maybe not. The current people that live in, Jerusalem and all that, they are actually from a country that was once part of Russia. And after World War II, the United Nations, we went into Israel. We literally stole the portion of the land in the Middle East, and we resettled a lot of those Jewish people over there. So that's why a lot of them are white and they look kind of like Russians or Germans. And that's where you get the different, they don't look like Palestinians and they don't look like Pakistanians or Afghanistans. So a lot of people don't know that in history. They think that the current Israelites have always been there, but that is not true. All right, so read up on your guys' history if you guys doubt me. I took a lot of history classes and human classes in college, and they will, if you get a good teacher, they will tell you the truth. All right, same with religion. I don't believe they were, the original Israelites were black. If anything, they were probably Middle Eastern looking, probably brown skinned or tan skinned. So, anyways, moving on. I'm just trying to disprove these Black Israelites' views, so to speak, and basically pin them down as a hate group. They're very racist. They're on the same level as the Black Panthers. I know a lot of people nowadays, after the Marvel movie or whatever, the comic book movie, Black Panther came out, the Black Panther Party has reignited. The Black Panther Party became very popular during the Martin Luther King days with Malcolm X. And one of the things, see, humans have very short history. If you actually go back and look at what the facts actually are, we have Martin Luther King that's doing mostly a good job. Martin Luther King was actually he stole other people's works. So what was that called? I can't even think of the name. I have a brain fart here. Plagiarized. He plagiarized other people's works, but his most famous speech, "I have a dream" or "I had a dream," that was his, so he gets full credit for that. But a lot of his views were stolen from other people in history, which I'm saying stolen. I guess you could say adopted if you want to be more politically correct. He adopted a lot of other people's beliefs, which isn't horrible. All right, he's trying to do better for his people, his African American race. So I don't begrudge him for that. But one of the other things that you guys need to know is he wasn't an angel either. He was a regular human being, and he had his weaknesses. One of them was for women. So he was an adulterer. He was caught several times at hotels with other women and not with his wife. So what I'm trying basically in this podcast is point out that the news and what we learn in school, the history books, they aren't always the truth. All right, you really, if there's a topic in the world that interests you a lot, you need to go in and actually do the research yourself. Back to these Black Israelites being like the Black Panthers, during Martin Luther King times, we have Malcolm X. Malcolm X was basically like a black gangster. He was a very bad guy. And at the time, the Black Panther Party was just as bad as the white KKK. And a lot of people have, I don't want to say have forgotten it. I think they have selectively overlooked it. They know that the Black Panther Party movement was bad and still is bad. It's full of gangsters, basically, and racists. And the only thing I could say is the lesser of two evils, the KKK versus the Black Panthers. The KKK has a much longer history of killing African Americans and other ethnicities. So they are, if you're going to put them on an evil spectrum, they are, I guess, more evil than the Black Panther Party. But the Black Panther Party were also doing killings of white men in their prime days of when the party was very big and exploding. So they're evil too. So they're right there with, Nazis and all that. They maybe aren't as evil as Nazis, but they're still killing innocent people, right? And robbing innocent people and taking advantage of innocent people. Now, these Black Israelites aren't killing people, but they are very, very racist. They're extremely racist. They can't stand every other race. They only care about blacks, and they don't even like other blacks that are Muslim or Catholic. They believe that they need to convert everyone into their doctrine of being an Israeli, which you could go down that rabbit hole of why a lot of African Americans believe that they're the true Israelites. Some of it, yeah, I could see where they might believe they could come from that region, through evolution and stuff. So I don't want to get into that today. In the video I showed you earlier, so after they were throwing these hate speeches, we seen Nathan Phillips walk up to Nick Salmon, the boy with the smirk and the red hat, and he was the one that walked up to these group of people. And if you actually look in the background, you see these kids jumping up and down. They're basically doing their school cheer, their school mater, like for pumping up their, how like in when you're at a sports games and you start doing the wave or you start doing other stuff, like the "We Will Rock You," like slapping your legs and you're clapping your hands. So this school has their own little thing. It's almost like a Polynesian style, like a Polynesian style, like war dance or chant. And so anyways, he walks up to them. These boys, they just done this chant, so their energy's going through the roof. They're young kids, so they got lots of energy as it is. And now he's beating his drum in front of this young boy, Nick Salmon, and Salmon's just smirking. He's not walking away. He's there for a movement of pro-life, so he's standing his ground, basically. If anything, Nathan Phillips is the one that is trying to start something. He should not be invading this young boy's space. And he should also acknowledge that this boy looks like he's 15 years old or 16 years old, maybe even younger. I'm not quite sure what Nick Salmon's age is. I didn't look into that, but I know he is in high school still. Anyways, this is, as an adult, this man he looks to be in his 60s. He should know not to do this with all these young boys. And these boys are chanting, they're doing the Indian chant, mocking this Indian guy. And when you think back of when you were in high school, you were very immature as well, and this is probably something that you would do. They're probably viewing this whole situation as sides. They're pro-life, and maybe they're thinking these other people aren't pro-life, and so they're mocking the other side. They're viewing them as an opponent. Or if they were like at a school game, we'll go back to that because that's going to come into play later on. And we really have to put our minds into what they're doing, into what they're thinking. Now, with that said, so now we got the true story and the fake story covered. But the media is kind of trying to double down against these Catholic children. They had another video pop up of these girls taking picture earlier in the day, maybe a couple hours earlier, where a group of boys were sitting on a bench and they were catcalling these few girls walking by. Now, This is viewed very negatively on the left-wing media and feminists because catcalling is not something that is politically correct. When I was in college, we had the center of the college was like the cafeteria and the bookstore, and you kind of needed to. We had like four different complexes in this college, and you kind of had to go through the middle of this college grounds. Uh, I guess a lot of people call it a quad. You have to go through it to get to another class, basically, if your other class is in a different building. And the basketball team would stand there in the middle. There'd be like 10 to 15 of them, like the whole team. They would just chill there when they're not in class, and they would do catcalls at every single girl that walks by. And it was super annoying. Even as a guy walking by and hearing them catcalling all these girls, I could see where this would be very intimidating and very childish and inappropriate. With that said, they weren't young white boys. They were young African American boys usually because I live in California, so we have a lot of Hispanics, Asians, blacks, whites. We have every single race here in California. We're a very big melting pot. And at this college, most of the basketball team were African American. So it's not just young white boys that are used to catcalling women, and it's not just young black men that are catcalling women. It's every single race. It would be Asians, Hispanics, it just depends on the situation and where you're at. And these kids, like any kid, are you really at this protest to do the pro-life movement? Or are you at this movement to get out of school? Looking back, when I was a high schooler, I'd rather be not in this classroom, not doing book work. I'd rather be at some stupid movement that I either care about or I don't care about, but I'm going to be out there just to hang out and not be in a classroom. So when you have these kids just sitting around on break, maybe they're eating their lunch and they see some hot girls walk by and they're catcalling them. That's something that a young boy would do. So, with that said, you guys could take it or leave it however you want. Like I said, I feel that that's something they shouldn't do, but as coming from being a young man, I know that how easily, when your hormones are flowing, how that can happen, all right? So let's move on to the next video. Now the media, the left-wing media, is digging for something. They're trying to pick apart every single thing, that these boys are evil and they're racist. Well, they pulled up a basketball video. I don't know how old it was, but at this school, this private school, when they have basketball games, it's kind of like a homecoming game. They get really into it, and they wear all black, and some of the boys were painted themselves all black. Right away, the liberals and the celebrities were calling this blackface. When you see the chant in the video, and also the chant that they did right before Nathan Phillips walks up to them beating his drum in the boy's face, I want to say it goes back to like a Polynesian war dance. I went to school with some Tongans. We had several Tongans at our high school, and I believe Tonga is an island near Australia. They are a Polynesian tribe, very big guys. They're like Samoans almost. And they have their own war dance. We even did it once in a football game in high school. They taught the team how to do it. So, knowing that, and then when I watched this video, it's almost like a Polynesian war dance. Now, why would a Catholic school be doing this? I really don't know. And why would they be doing this black paint all over their bodies. The only thing I could think of is it's like a war dance, and therefore what goes with war dances is war paint. You could go back in history to every great civilization and every little lesser civilization, and a lot at a tribal nature. A lot of our cultures in the past have painted their full bodies in war paint, whether it be black, blue, red, yellow. It was basically whatever paint they had available. And it's usually a paint that pops on the skin. So the boys could have used maybe a red, a yellow, or a blue. But black also pops on the skin. Whereas if you're African American or Hispanic, black maybe isn't the color you're going to go to, since your skin is dark already. Then you're probably going to go more towards like a yellow or a white. So if a African American, like the voodoo, the voodoo priests, they wear the white paint. Are we supposed to call them racist for wearing white? Or what if these boys chose to use red instead of black? Now are they going to be called racist versus the Redskin Indian Nation? So it's basically the liberals trying to pick at every little thing. Is blackface makeup wrong? That's a topic for another time. In our current political world, in 2019, I'd say if you do blackface, then you're just an idiot. All right, because it's globally not accepted, and if you're doing it, you're doing it just to be an asshole. All right, so don't do that. If you're doing black for a war dance or a ceremony, then it's still, don't let people record you, because if it gets out on social media, they're going to call you saying you're doing blackface, even though you have a good excuse. All right. Anyways, let's move on. So now we got the fake news, we got the real news that popped up, and we got the fake news trying to pop back in and get away with not apologizing. We also had a lot of the left-wing media come out and half-ass apologize. Basically, they're saying, you know what, as media, we're wrong. It's like that lady on The View. I think her name is Behar or something. I forget her name. I don't watch that stupid show. It's ridiculous. But she told the truth. So I'm happy with her. She said, you know what, as a liberal, anything that is perceived as being pro-Trump, we tend to overreact, and we don't wait for the facts to fully come in. And we tend to go 200% on a certain topic. So she was admitting to what the left-wing media does. And she was being very honest. I don't know if she apologized, but she gave a very valid explanation as to what happens. And then we get the left-wing media, and they're coming in and saying, well, if that was my kid, I would have his ass, I would, he would be grounded because he's disrespecting a war vet and an Indian elder, and he should have walked away, and he shouldn't have been smirking like that. Well, there's a lot of shouldn't be's and what ifs, and first of all, this man Nathan Phillips lied about being in I believe it was the Vietnam War. I think he was in the military, but he never went to a war. So right away, his credibility is shattered right there. Another credibility issue with Nathan Phillips is he said these boys were chanting "Build a Wall." In this whole 2-hour video and the other videos that have resurfaced, there was never an instance where these boys have mentioned a wall. And or any type of slanders towards these Native Americans or the Black Israelites. Were they being childish? Were they smirking? Were they chanting? Were they seeming provoking? Yes, but you gotta go back to the maturity level of a boy. When you think about it, as a lady or even as a man, when do you think a man really starts to become mature? Is he mature at the age of 18? No. He's more mature around like the age of 25-ish. That's kind of, I would say like a 25-year-old male is equivalent to an 18-year-old female, right? That's about right there. So that's not for all men. There are some men like me. I was very mature. Fuck, I was like a mini adult when I was like 10 years old. So you get people like me, but for majority of young men, and this boy is around 16 or so, he's going to be immature. All these boys are going to be immature. They're not in a classroom. They're not doing classwork. They're out having fun. They're probably not even really doing this pro-life movement like it should be. They're just taking advantage of hanging out all day and telling jokes and goading the other side that is opposing them. They're viewing it as maybe like a team sport, which politics now has become a team sport. Or we could even go into another level where politics are tribal. So we view ourselves as a tribe, and only our tribe is right and the other tribe is wrong, and it needs to burn and die. Which is what the Israelites were doing, which what these boys were doing, which is what this Native American guy was doing. So really, yes, the boys were immature, but they're boys, they're children. They should not be held accountable for this whole situation blowing up out of proportion. It's these Black Israelites, and it's this Indian man that walked up to them, goading them. They are the true villains in this. Now, last but not least, let's get into this MAGA hat bullshit. I, as an independent, not left or right wing, I don't have an issue with this MAGA hat. I really don't. I don't see this whole phrase is not a negative phrase. So let's go over this. When you look up the word make in the dictionary, it says form something by putting parts together, combining substances, construct, or create. America is basically another word for the United States. Great. The definition says, of an extent, amount, or intensity considerably above the normal or average. So, great means above average. Again, another time, or once more. So, when we put this all together, basically, what this saying is, what Trump has created, this motto, it's basically to recreate, to rebuild America to become above average once more. All right? Did you get that one? I'll say that one more time. We're going to rebuild America above average once more. So that's a nicer way, I guess, of saying make America great again. This hat is viewed as racist because Trump won presidency basically running off this slogan, this motto, and they have termed it the MAGA hats. Why is it racist? Is Trump a racist? Let's go back. Let's look at his political history. Let's look at his celebrity history and his personal life history. Trump inherited lots of money from his family, from his dad. He invested his money wisely and used his money to make more money. He had issues with bankruptcy. He felt that they were how do I put this? Economically acceptable to bankrupt a few of his companies because he found that they were loopholes in our system. Now, whether or not you want to call this shady or underhanded. You can say that. It depends on where you are on the more morality spectrum of things. Or if you want to be more direct and look at the facts, Trump was basically finding a loophole in our government of laws, which a lot of us do. A lot of people do that, especially business owners. They try to write off a lot of bullshit, so they don't have to pay as much in taxes, etc. So if you're an employee though, it's harder for you to undermine Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam's gonna have a easier time getting money out of you. All right. Let's move on. Why is Trump considered racist? Well, in his young life, as a rich person, a man that had a lot of ties into the celebrity world, he hung out with a lot of African American actors and actresses. He had lots of girlfriends and from other countries. Even his current wife is from another country. He comes from a family of immigrants. His wife is an immigrant. His child is born of a mother of an immigrant. He once was friends with the Clintons, very good friends with the Clintons. He was friends with Oprah, with Will Smith, with lots of other black celebrities. He currently is friends with black celebrities. And even later on, when he became a big apartment mogul in New York, building all these apartment buildings and renting them out, the Trump Tower. You know what he did? He saw a black female bum. She was trying to steal food out of the trash can, and you could even look this up. You could look it up, and he knew that she got caught, and they were gonna call the cops on her, have her pulled away. He came down. He saw that she wasn't mentally there. She was mentally impaired, a little slow or autistic. Something was not right, anyways. And you know what he did? He gave her a room in his Trump Tower. An apartment building, and he gave her food. She's allowed to have 3 meals a day in his restaurant, and she even gets a bus fare, a bus ticket every year. So, does that sound like somebody that's racist to you, that he would do this for a black female lady that has some mental issue? That doesn't sound like a racist person to me. That sounds like a very nice person to me. Now, is Trump full of himself? Does he lie a lot? Does he overstate the facts? Yes, that's him. He's a braggart. He likes to brag about himself. He can't take, he doesn't like taking the heat. He doesn't like people poking fun at him. He gets very childish. But if you really think about it, we all have issues. We all have downsides. But when you think of Trump, and if you really look into his history, he doesn't pop out as racist. And he was a Democrat for most of his life. He just very recently became a Republican. And so now let's look into why is he becoming called a racist so prevalently. Well, other than running as a Republican, because all Republicans are viewed as racist for whatever reason, I don't know. It's childish, and it's watering down the word racist. But anyways, let's move on. One of the biggest facts in liberals' eyes that comes to mind is Trump's build the wall. They view this as being a racist view, keeping out illegal immigrants. And most of those illegal immigrants are brown, they're Hispanics. Also keeping out Muslims, which are typically black or brown, um, by tightening the border security and air travel. So this is one of the major issues where Trump is viewed as a racist. Now, are you a racist for wanting more border security and more flight protection? It's something that the Obamas did. It's something that the Clintons did. It's something that the Bushes did. It's something that mostly all presidents were stern about, was borders and flight security. So why is Trump being slammed so hard for something that every president before him, both left and right wing, have been so strong about? Well, now we have to look into some of the things that Trump has done. Trump has made the comment like "grab her by the pussy." That was that bus video that came out before he was elected president. So a lot of feminists have attacked him about that. To me, that's like locker room talk. It's something that guys and girls would talk about. I have friends that are girls, and they could be very dirty, very, very dirty, dirtier than some of my guy friends, especially if they're lesbians. Lesbians are very crude. Well, my lesbian friends, I don't know about all lesbians, but they could be very crude, and they could say some pretty nasty stuff. And it's basically locker room talk, so to speak. Should he said it? No. Should people say that type of stuff? No. Does it happen? Yes. Is it acceptable? No, it's not acceptable. But it's not rare. It doesn't happen rarely. It happens more often than not. Right around your close inner circle of friends. And he didn't know he was being filmed, so that happened. So right away, this starts to question Trump as a man, as a person, as a moral being. So this takes a big ding out of Trump. Then you start to have all these issues with Trump braggarting, talking about how great and wonderful he is and how everything he does is the best and this and that and that. And then you get these fact checkers that come in and say, "Hey, wait, you're not the richest man," or "Hey, you didn't do your taxes," or "Hey, this and this and that." So now Trump is being attacked on his daily bragging. And because Trump likes to brag and tweet so much, it has become a constant battle against himself. The media has locked on, and every little thing he says is now put into question. So every political thing that he ran on is also put into question. Now they're calling things racist or immoral or anti-women or whatever, anti-gay, anti-lesbian. But Trump has done things where he does he used to do those beauty pageants, and even one of the women that won was like a transgender woman. It was like a drag queen. So I don't think he's against gays and lesbians, and I don't think he's against women. And then you have things like the him sleeping with hookers, or porn stars, and cheating on his wives and stuff. So this is more things that are eating away at the type of person that Trump is. So you could easily get away with trying to throw in racism. But I don't feel like he is a racist. Is he an adulterer? Is he a womanizer? Yes. Does he like to fib little lies daily? Yes. Is he a big liar? I don't really think he's a big liar. I think he just lies on the surface. He's just so used to doing little lies. And this is most common with people that are full of themselves. They have big egos. So, oh yes, I'm the best. I'm the sexiest. Or, I could do that better than you. Like, they're constantly building themselves up. They need to build their own self-confidence constantly, and this requires lots of little lies to build yourself up. But is he a deep liar? Is he lying? Is he doing very big lies like Hillary Clinton? No, I don't think he is. I don't think he's as big of a liar as Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, when you look at her, even the left wing liberals that didn't vote for her, they say, well, she's just fake. You could just tell right away she's fake. There's no truth to anything she says. She's just a big old sham. When you look at Trump, he's not a big old sham, but he is kind of a joke on the surface level, right? Everybody makes fun of him, both the left and right wing. They poke fun at him for the type of shit he says. But when you really try to break down his walls and look down deep, you really can't get anything worse than him being a womanizer and a cheater. And every time someone uses the word racist with him, all it does is push more liberals that are maybe more right wing swinging towards the Trump agenda, and more right wing people that are just going to vote again for Trump. Now, some of the things that Trump has done recently that is pissing off the right wingers is this government shutdown. A lot of people that work for, the U.S. Postal Service, the National Forest, or any type of federal law enforcement job, they went with almost a month without pay, unless their branch was given the money in the last quarter. Because some government jobs got their money in like November or December, so they had enough money to pay for this month. But some agencies like the Postal Service and the National Forest Service, they didn't get their money in November, December, and these people went a whole month without getting paid, which makes them back due on a lot of bills if they're living paycheck to paycheck. So this has pissed off a lot of people. It's not looking good. It affected the welfare system. It affected people's that get their Social Security checks. It had a larger effect on people than I believe Trump believed. And he's the president, so he's going to be blamed, even though maybe it was the left-wing House, Nancy Pelosi, that was at fault. He's still going to get blame because he is our leader. He is the president. And as an independent, I believe he should be blamed. It is his job to broker deals with the left wing. And he should not have held out for so long and put a lot of our families in danger of not being paid for a month and stressing about how they're going to pay their bills. So before I end this podcast episode, I want to cover something that I keep seeing on the news. Every news organization keeps calling our country a democracy. Democracy, democratic, democracy, blah, 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 blah. And every time I hear that, I feel like I'm in a twilight zone, like I'm in an alternate reality. Because I feel like people didn't pay attention in school, if you're an American, or they're trying to turn our country into a democracy. We are not a democracy. We are not a democratic country. Okay? So with that said, what are we? What do you think we are? If we're not a democracy, we're not a monarchy, we don't have a king, we're not anarchy, we're not an oligarchy, because we're not communists or socialists. So what does that leave? Can you think? What's United States? We are a republic. Our founding fathers did not want a democracy. They actually believed democracy was one of the actual worst governments to build. They actually favored a monarchy. They actually wanted to make Washington a king over having a democracy. So what is a democracy then? What countries are democratic? This would be a lot of the socialistic and communistic countries. This would be like China. This would be like Russia. This would be like Norway, Sweden, Germany, France. All these European countries that don't have a king. So it's most countries in the world are a democracy. All right, so let's go over exactly what's what. A lot of people say Nazism, Nazis and fascists, they're far right. They're far right. That's what Trump is. He's a Nazi. He's a fascist. This is another label they like to place on him. It goes with the racist. Nazi, fascist, racist. This is the top three things they like to pin on Trump. But what is a Nazi? Where do they fall on the political spectrum? Are they far right? Are they far left? They are actually far left. They are actually considered an oligarchy. So, let's go over everything first. The extreme left, we have a monarchy or a dictatorship. That is the rule by one. It means total government control. 100% government. Everything has to be ran by the government before you could do it. That's what a monarchy and a dictatorship is. There really isn't a monarchy ruled country any longer, in the sense of the king, what the king says goes. Like England, they basically are now considered an oligarchy. Because the queen currently has a party of members, that a ruling party basically. They have an assembled people that is ruled by a few. So basically, what an oligarchy is, it's a far left political spectrum, and it's ruled by few. So basically, we no longer have the monarchy in the political spectrum. That now falls under oligarchy, because the queen is basically just a figurehead, and we have ruling parties beneath the king and the queen that actually rules. All right. Dictators, yes, we still have them, like Maduro in Venezuela currently. He's ruining that country fast. People are starving to death. You could watch my other podcast episode on that. He's a terrible, terrible dictator. Everything this means, so he's extreme far left. Everything he says goes, and if he doesn't want you to do something, then you can't do it because it's ruled by a total government. Then we have center left, which would be democracy, and that's ruled by majority. So this is a mob rule. The best example, I guess, would be so what is mob rule? What is majority rule? So let's since we're in America and I'm in California and we're far west, and we had the cowboy days. A lot of countries understand what cowboys were. Let's say you had a bank robber come into your little town, and he holds up your bank, and then 30 of your townspeople catch up with him on horseback. They catch him, and mob rule is, hey, let's all raise your hand if you want to hang this guy right now, and we can head back home with the money and put it back in the bank and go to bed. So, let's say there's 31 of them, and 30 raise their hand saying, yeah, let's hang this bastard. He robbed from our bank. So they hang him right there on the tree, and the one guy that voted against it, well, whatever, it's mob rule. Alright, so you could also put this into voting terms. If you do a local vote, let's say you're trying to vote for your town sheriff, let's say that. Alright, you're still in the Wild West. Well, everybody knows in this town that the sheriff's running is dirty. Uh, but if they don't vote for him, he's going to come by and harass them every day. So the majority votes to keep this sheriff as the sheriff because they don't want to deal with the bullshit. So that's majority rule, and he is the sheriff, right? Whereas now we have center right. This is what America is built on. We are a republic. We are ruled by laws. We are not ruled by the majority. We have college votes instead of majority votes. We are basically on the moral spectrum, we are constitutional moderates. Now a lot of people call this a constitutional democracy or a constitutional republic. All right, so I just said, America is not a democracy. We aren't. We are a republic. But a lot of the current terminology of a republic is going into like Merriam-Webster dictionary, going into Wikipedia's, going into news outlets. They're basically trying to rewrite history and say, well, republic is a branch of democracy. So really, you guys are a democracy. I believe this is because as a country, United States is becoming more and more government ruled. So we are kind of turning into a democracy. So, but we're not a democracy yet. So we should technically still be called a republic because it's in our constitution. It's in our country's constitution, and they cannot take that away from us unless there is some type of civil war or we get invaded and taken over. So we are still a republic. But a lot of the global elites, the people in the ruling powers, they really, really, really want to make America a democracy because the more America is ruled by the government, the more money they make, the more control they have over the people, etc. The more they become an elite class over the little sheeple. Then we have the extreme right. Oh, wait. Let's back up a little bit. Because I give you an example of what rule by majority is. So, let's go back to that situation of in the cowboy days, someone robs the bank, 31 people from the town catch up with the bank robber, they catch him, and they say, hey, let's hang this bastard so we could put the money back in the bank and go to bed. Okay, let's all vote on it. And you get the 30-1 vote. But the sheriff rolls on in. So now it's 31 and a sheriff. The sheriff says, no. Nobody better touch a hair on that guy's head. Y'all better go home and go back to bed. Give me the bag of money. I'll take it to the bank. And this guy is going to go into the jail and wait for a judge to roll into town in a month or so. And then we'll do a trial by peers. And, we'll have jurors on the court. And we'll go from there. This is a rule by law. Now this guy can still be hanged on a tree, at a later date. But he isn't instantly considered a thief. And he has a chance of, having a hardship plea. Maybe in court, a month later, the judge is there. He said, yes, I'm sorry, I robbed the bank. I'm guilty of that. But it's because my kids are starving. And I even sent the sheriff over to my farmstead to go give them food because they were starving to death. And, I had no money. I had broken my foot and I couldn't go to work, etc. So he could basically talk the jurors into basically a lesser sentence. So he's not hung at the tree. Instead, maybe the jurors say, well, we find the defendant guilty, so which they would all have to agree on. All the jurors would have to agree that he's guilty. If there's one guy that holds out and says, no, he's not guilty, then the guy is let go and the court is done. But let's say they all say, yes, he's guilty, but we don't feel he should be killed because that's something we could have done too in his situation if we got severely injured, our wife is dead, and our kids are starving to death. So I think he should do hard labor in a prison camp for 20 years. So instead of him dying, he's now basically a prisoner working in a mine or something. So this is the difference between a republic and a democracy. We are ruled by laws, whereas democracy is ruled by a majority. Okay, now we're going to go into the extreme right. This is something that is viewed often by the media as a extreme left, but it is not. It is not an extreme left. It is an extreme right. Anarchy. Anarchists. It's the people where they feel that there should be no rulers. It's the rule by none. There's no one ruling anyone. No government whatsoever. This means you're in a chaotic land. You're always going to have a weapon on you to defend yourself in case someone tries to steal your possessions or rape you or kill you or turn you into a slave. This is usually happens in civil wars when there's a revolutionary war in a country. This happened in Russia. It happened in Germany. The one I'm more familiar with is the Germany one when the brown coats took over the country. This is the working class. And this is when, and then after a while they're like, hey, we need somebody to rule us because we don't feel safe. Well, that's when they voted in Hitler. So now you go from extreme right to extreme left, far left, where now you have an oligarchy or a dictatorship. Usually it's extreme left. It's usually a dictatorship, which Hitler was. In essence, a lot of people call him a socialist, which would fall under a far left oligarchy, but he was more like a dictator. Because whatever he said went, and as the war grew, he got more and more and more powers, and anything he said went. He became a dictator. So he kind of went. So they started as an anarchy on the far right. Then they moved to an oligarchy where they voted in a guy and a party, which was the Working Party, a socialistic party. And then that socialistic party turned into far left, becoming a dictatorship. Now, a lot of people call the Nazi Party a right movement. They call it, far right, conservative. They are not conservative. A true far right would be an anarchy. And a true far left would be Nazism and fascism. All right. So I wanted to leave you guys with knowing a little bit more about the type of rule in our world. And really, I'm just tired of our country turning into a democracy because we are a republic. And there's a reason why America is so great. And that's because we're ruled by laws. And these laws are meant to protect the people. They're not meant to hurt the people. If we had mob rule, let's say, for example, there's 60% anti-white males in the country. And those 60% put in a vote to kill all white males in the country. And let's say that bill passed at 51%, and now the country has the right to kill all white males because 51% passed this vote. That is not good. That's not good. Would something like that ever really happen in real life? I'd like to hope not. But this is why we don't really want a democracy. We don't want to give more power to the government. We actually want less power. And currently, we are still a republic, but like I said, we are kind of turning into a democracy, even though our Constitution states something else. So it's very dangerous, and I hope you guys learned something today, and thanks for listening. Have a good one.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to find out more about Killing the Void podcast, you can visit our website at www.killingthevoid.com. You will find links to download our latest episodes. Thank you and have a good day.